Why is your own family? I mean, for those of us, and you know me a long time, and I've told you, Irish American, my father, biggest Kennedy, my mother. We were huge Kennedy fans, still are in the family. I mean, they're gone now, but my sister. So when we see the Kennedys fighting amongst each other, when I saw your family coming out against you so much last week, it breaks my heart. I mean, why can't you get them on your side more?
Control them.
Well, yeah.
Listen, there's 105 members of my family, and it's a big Irish family, and I have family members in this audience.
I can hear.
Not all of them. I have family members running my campaign. I have family members running certain states of my campaign. So, there's a division in my family, but there's 5 members of my family that work for the Biden administration. President Biden's been a long-term friend of our families. There's a bust of my father behind him in the Oval Office, and he's been a friend of mine. So I understand the dismay that some members of my family have at me running, but also, I come from a family where we were taught to argue with each other and to debate each other. My father orchestrated debates almost every night at the dinner table. He encouraged us to debate with passion, with good information, with reason, but also to love each other, even when we disagreed with each other. And I love my family. I feel loved by them. They're entitled to their opinion. They disagree with me. They disagree with me on the censorship issue. They disagree with me on the Ukraine. They disagree with me on a lot of other issues, and I respect them, and I love them, and I wish we could do the same thing in this country, where we could differ with each other.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr., thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate the time.
Well, thanks for having me here. It's good to finally meet you, Ben.
Yeah. So let's start by talking a little bit about kind of the background stuff. So, first of all, obviously, you're a Kennedy. What was it like growing up in the Kennedy family?
Well, I grew up. We have a large Irish Catholic family. I was very, very close knit. And very kind of, I had 29 cousins. My grandfather and grandmother was Joseph and Rose Kennedy. They had 9 kids, including my uncle. Their eldest son was Joe Kennedy, who was killed during World War II. Their eldest daughter was Kathleen, who was killed in an airplane crash immediately after the war. Joe Kennedy was kind of the big hope for my grandfather. He was his golden child, and he really never recovered from that.
A lot of tragedy this is RFK sitting down with Ben Shapiro. Of course, a lot of tragedy in the Kennedy family.
Death. His next child was John Kennedy, who became the first Irish Catholic president of the United States. My father was his brother's campaign manager and then his attorney general. Later, after my uncle was killed in '63, my father ran for Senate, became senator from New York, and was killed running for president in '68 in Los Angeles.
And that's crazy. So he broke it down there. You already know the family name. So his uncle gets offed, allegedly by a 3-letter agency, potentially, hypothetically. And then his father, I believe the story with his father is that he gets unlived. I believe it was a Palestinian, I got to look that up. But he was unlived too. There's something here, man. The family's always been tied into politics. And I think the family, there's been in the family, they've been tied into politics, potentially even the mob, allegedly, with his uncle, at least. And they always haven't played along. And it kind of reminds me of Trump, except Trump is not, his whole family hadn't been in politics. But the bottom line is Trump is establishment guy. I mean, he's a guy who could have owned a football team if they would have let him in the club. And RFK has the political name. I mean, bigger than any name out there, than Clinton or Bush or any of them. One of the biggest political names in our country. And they whoever did, offed at least a couple of them. To me, it could be evidence that they do go against the grain.
My other uncle, Ted Kennedy, was one of the longest serving members of the United States Senate. He was in the Senate for over 50 years. He has more legislation with his name on it than any senator in history. My aunt Eunice Shriver was the founder of Special Olympics. And so there was we were raised kind of in a milieu of public service and politics, and it was all around us. I was at the convention in 1960 as a 6-year-old boy, and we had front row seats on everything that happened during that Camelot period. I became after my dad's death in '68. My mom had 11 kids, so I had 10 siblings, and my family was at that point, after my dad was killed, it was very chaotic. I began a 14-year experiment with drugs that turned into an addiction to heroin. I got sober in 1928 and then became one of I would say, the leading environmental lawyers and activists in the country. I co-founded a group that became Waterkeeper Alliance, that became the biggest water protection group in the world. And I mainly was litigating against polluters. In, I think, around 2015, or 2016, I started another group called Children's Health Defense that focuses on children and public health.
So
let me stop there for this segment. Man, we talked about Kristi Noem and unliving her dog, and that's probably the biggest hardship. One of them, at least. It was big enough for her to mention in her book. I think she wanted a hardship that wasn't political, so she had to go down the line, and she picked that one. And I respect this more. I'm not feeling sorry for him. I mean, it's kind of similar to Robert Biden right now, with the demons that he's probably still struggling through, as we saw him take that bump in front of everybody. But RFK looks like he is recovered. He said he's recovering, or you're never fully recovered. You're always in recovery, I guess is what it is. But and he was able to start these great organizations. I want to go back to the family real quick. The family did an ad, and I'm going to end on this. There was the ad, and then this was in Philadelphia. And then they also stumped in Philadelphia for Biden.
My name is Joe Kennedy.
I'm Carrie Kennedy.
Troy Kennedy.
Kathleen Kennedy Townsend.
Chris Kennedy.
And I'm here to proudly endorse Joe Biden.
And Joe Biden. Joe Biden.
Our future is on the ballot in a way in which we haven't seen in generations.
The only way to win this election is for everybody to go out and vote for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris.
When I think of modern politicians in our country in this century, I think Joe Biden is the RFK of his generation.
Believes in democracy, believes in human rights, believes in the freedoms.
This is a president who embodies the Kennedy legacy.
A vote for Joe Biden is a vote for our democracy and our decency.
In a rebuke of Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s independent bid for the White House, 15 members of the Kennedy family endorsed U.S. President Joe Biden at a campaign event in Philadelphia on Thursday.
I can only imagine how Donald Trump's outrageous lies and behavior would have horrified my father.
Here's RFK Jr.'s younger sister, Carrie Kennedy.
We want to make crystal clear our feeling that the best way forward for America is to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to 4 more years.
Is there something with the voice in the family? I honestly don't know. I mean, tell me in the comments if you know. Her voice is kind of like his. which a lot of people are bothered by the voice. It doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I think it kind of lets him stand out, but it's whatever. Most people that I chat with, it kind of bothers them, but not to me at all. But it's just, look how savage politics is. His family gets unlived. I mean, you can't go through the whole list. I gotta like get a notepad and organize it. He asks for Secret Service protection. There was an attempt to unlive him, a verified attempt to unlive him recently. And the same people that his family endorsed, the same people, the same dude, it really goes to the Department of Homeland Security that reports to Biden. 15 of his family members endorsed the man who denied Secret Service to him after he had an attempt on his life. It's hard to underestimate how dirty politics is. And I've completely shifted on RFK. I'm not voting for him. That I am not voting for anyone who's off on the JQ problem in that country over there. But I am more on his camp than Trump now. I would have never thought I would say that. They're both bad on the JQ, so throw that away. That's irrelevant. If you compare Trump to RFK, they're both bad on that country over there. It doesn't matter. Don't care. They're both equal. So you throw it just like math. It's equal on both sides, cross it out. And you look at the major issues outside of that. What's the most major issue outside of that? The pandemic. RFK's better on that. I still have to unpack his solutions because I'm not sure that he has good solutions, but Trump doesn't even recognize what the problems were. So then after that, then I'm like, there's a lot to look at, a lot to like. So I see why people are afraid. I look at people, I highly respect the Dilly Meme team. They still do memes on RFK because he's a threat.
Middle MAGA.